So for the first client, I probably had one scrubber, one squeegee, and a bucket from Lowe's.
Okay.
Hey, they're going to throw me out of here because I'm soliciting and I'm about to call the cops or whatever. And I was like, hey, I don't want any problems. Let me get on down the road. Because if we didn't have to put out a dime, which we didn't have a dime to put out,
Okay.
why not do something? And I thought it was just going to be a little storefront that I was doing, a little $15, $12 window storefront. I was thinking nothing of it. I was happy to have that because every little $15, $12 added up for me and my family to eat.
As you start to become successful, how do you prevent your kids from feeling entitled? Like, oh, Dad, you're out here making all this money and they want the latest and the greatest thing. So I'm going to say this. It may not be right, but I'm going to give you an example. So my thought process is either you did one or two things. Welcome back to the Let's Evolve for Tomorrow podcast, where we help aspiring, new, and existing entrepreneurs excel to the next level by inviting other aspiring, new, and existing entrepreneurs to the podcast to give knowledge and information on how to get to the next level. So today we have another special guest, Micrin Norman with 2020 View LLC. He has a power washing and window cleaning business. He's been in business 20 plus years, has over 2,500 clients. So obviously that shows that he's very dedicated to his business, very dedicated to his work, very dedicated to what he does in terms of taking care of his family and providing value. So we're going to jump right into it. I don't want to steal all the shine. Micrin, how you doing, man?
I'm okay, man. I'm glad to be here with you.
I appreciate you accepting the invite. It's exciting to have you sitting across from me. You know, just to me, I'm excited because it shows the value that we're giving with Let's Evolve for Tomorrow podcast. It's really showing that we're impacting people. So I appreciate you tapping in, checking out a few episodes, and willing to jump on the podcast.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So let's talk about 2020 View LLC. How did you become so successful? 2,500 clients, that's a big deal.
We've been at it for a while. I'll be honest with you. May sound a little bit better than what it really is, but I mean, we've been at it for some time now, so we've been able to build on our portfolio a little bit. You know, I'm sure we'll get into it, but it wasn't always easy like that.
Okay. So when you say it wasn't always easy, right? I mean, obviously from what I've seen, right? I've gone to the website, I've gone to the social media platforms, I've seen some of the commercial and residential stuff that you've done. I see this big 26-foot box truck, and I'm like, what in the world could you put in this truck when it comes to power washing? So obviously, and being in business 20 years, you're doing something right. So I guess the question is, first of all, what's in that truck?
So we've had different types of accounts over the years.
Okay.
In that particular truck, it's a 1,100 gallon tank. We used to have it used to be like a 1,700 gallon, but it was unnecessary. We was able to make a little bit more room for different things that we need on the job. So made a shelf in there, and it's just 11 gallon tank now, and maybe 4 different power washers.
Okay.
At 10 gallons a minute, so it helps us in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have and I don't know the terms, right, the technical terms, but you know that thing that when you're scaling the side of a building, and if it's like 4 or 5 stories and you have to put the ropes at the top and kind of descend?
Yeah, we do that too. That's more for window cleaning though. We used to do more of it, but with insurance and different stuff nowadays, it's unnecessary. We can make the same amount of money on the ground, so that's the way we do it now. But we do have all that equipment.
Okay, so are you the sole owner of 2020?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
How many employees do you have?
At this time, it varies, but normally when peak season is in, we're probably somewhere between 7 and 9.
7 to 9?
7 to 9. And it fluctuates because we got subs too outside of state and different stuff like that.
Okay. So is all of your business local, like local to Columbus, or do you have business in other cities?
So we do have business in other cities, but like I said, that rolls off into the subs. So subs, I'll use a sub wherever. So we do a lot of airports around, Ohio, and we have subs that cover those. We'll cover the stuff, right here in the city.
Okay.
But for the most part, if it's something way out, we'll pass it off to a sub or something.
Gotcha. Okay, so 20 years, definitely successful. So I have to ask, and I always ask, what inspired you to get into power washing?
It was kind of strange. I never really said to myself, "Hey, I'm going to power wash." I did it before through another company when I was younger. I thought it was cool, but I just kept thinking to myself, I didn't want to start a business with overhead because I knew you would have breakdowns, you have wear and tear, and to be quite honest, I knew I wasn't gonna have the money. So I said, "Yeah, I won't be doing that."
Okay. So, all right, when you started, what's the very first thing you did? So, what did the idea? So, you said you didn't want a lot of overhead, but what is it that triggered power washing specifically?
So I'll be honest, I get bored with stuff fairly quick.
Hmm.
And we had been doing the window cleaning and everything, and it was cool. But then we started getting calls for power washing and stuff, and I was like, maybe we could do it. So I ended up getting a machine, and then I figured out that it would be a nice add-on. I said, well, you know what? This is what we're doing now. So I added it on, and we've been doing it ever since. But like I said, I was doing that before anything. I was power washing even before window cleaning came into place.
Okay,
Yeah.
so when you were power washing, was it your business or were you?
No,
Okay,
no, it was through another company.
through another
I was
company.
working through. Yeah.
Okay, so how long did you work for that company before you branched off?
I didn't work for them long at all. It was just hit and miss. They would call us to do different stuff when they needed an extra man.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you decided I'm gonna start doing my own thing. But what was that very first step? Did you? So I'm going to say this. It may not be right, but I'm going to give you an example. So my thought process is either you did one or two things. Either you took your water hose and hooked it up to their water supply and power washed their house, or did you go to Lowe's and buy a mobile power washer? Like, what did you do to get started? What was that first step when you decided you were going to step out on your own?
Yeah. So like I said, we were doing the window cleaning first,
Mhm.
and then that was sort of like an add-on. So when a homeowner did ask for that particular service, that's exactly what we did. We went out, we got a power washer. It was just a little back alley power washer, but it did the job. We hooked up a hose, hooked it to their home, and then we just pressure wash, and that's what it was. We would just throw it in the back of our truck at that point.
Okay, so you started with window cleaning. So what supplies did you go out and buy? Did you already have a pickup or SUV or?
Starting out, no, we didn't have none of the above.
Okay.
Yeah, so the crazy thing was a buddy of mine, I barely had a car.
Uh-huh.
A buddy of mine sold me this little hatchback beater or whatever, and man, I ain't gonna front. I had it was the Little Giant at the time.
Mhm.
Man, that was the first purchase I had ever bought for my business. That thing had my pocket weak.
What's a little giant?
It's a ladder that does all these different stages to get you in different places, and you can set it up in different ways to benefit yourself on the job.
Gotcha.
Depending on what type of job it is.
Okay.
But that was the first piece of equipment I had ever bought for myself for the company.
Gotcha. So you bought the little giant. You had this hatchback car. So when it came to cleaning the windows, did you just show up with a bottle of Windex and some paper towels, or did you go and buy the little squeegee things?
Yeah, so I was never going to do it that way because I had seen this guy at one particular time. I think I was driving a dump truck at the time, and I kept thinking to myself, some sort of a job with no overhead is what I was going to do. And when I got to the light on High Street, I seen this guy, and he's on this little step ladder, and he had Windex, some paper towels or napkins out of the Donatos or whatever. And I was like, man, this dude, I'm looking like, I know it's got to be a safer and better way to do that.
Okay.
And sure enough, it was. I did a little bit of research and figured out that, you could have squeegees and different stuff, and I didn't have any skills, so I ended up working with a company for a period of time, and then I was able to get a little bit of skills, and then I ended up doing it on my own.
All right. So when you did it on your own, what equipment did you have for your first client?
So for the first client, I probably had one scrubber,
Mm-hmm.
one squeegee, and a bucket from Lowe's.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I went out and man, I knew what I had to do, and that was pretty much it.
Okay. So was your first client residential or commercial?
The first client was probably commercial. It was just a little commercial store.
Mm-hmm.
The backstory on that, I'm sure we'll probably get in that, but I'll give you a little hint up
Yeah.
front. I had walked into a place in Marysville, Ohio, and I thought it was just going to be a little storefront that I was doing, a little $15, $12 window storefront. I was thinking nothing of it. I was happy to have that because every little $15, $12 added up for me and my family to eat, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what it was going to be. So I walked in there, and when I walked in there, like always, I thought the person that came out was going to tell me, hey, they're going to throw me out of here because I'm soliciting and I'm about to call the cops or whatever. And I was like, hey, I don't want any problems. Let me get on down the road. And they said, hey, no, come on inside here. And I'm like, oh, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went inside there, this manager guy or somebody came out the back and he said, come on to my office with me. And I'm like, oh, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all bad. I'm thinking this is going to be it. So when I went to the back, he said, let me ask you something. He said, can you do big buildings? I said, man, I can do whatever you got.
Right.
I'm in
Right.
sales mode now. It ain't nothing we can't do. So he said, I'm going to put this stuff in front of you, and I want you to get me a quote. I said, cool. So he gave me the locations. All of them were on campus. They were parking garages.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, just get them back to me. So I guess he thought, it would be, I don't know, maybe a week or 5 days, 6 days. I don't know. I had them back to him within 4 hours.
So this
I
was your
went.
very first client?
This is my very first big client.
Well, no, I mean, okay, so I
Okay.
mean like your very first client. Like, what did you do? Because, okay, the
Okay.
reason I say that is there's someone out there that may want to start the same type of business or any kind of business, right?
Gotcha.
And they're terrified to go approach that very first customer. So when you got your scrubber, your squeegee, and your bucket, and your hatchback with your big, small ladder, or little giant, if I said it right,
Right.
that very first client, like
Okay.
out the gate, what was that experience like?
Um, I'll be honest. I don't really remember, but from what I do remember, there were there were probably just commercial accounts that I would walk in,
Hmm.
and I would just sell myself in that way. And um, I do remember most of them being in Marysville. A
Okay.
buddy of mine lived out there, and for some reason it just seemed like that was untouched territory. So I started there, and I was getting a lot of success from what
Okay.
I remember.
So you started commercial. You didn't start
I
residential?
pretty much started commercial, and then home, different friends and different people started asking me, hey, could you do our home? And I didn't even know how to do a home at the time because I was doing commercial stuff.
Gotcha. So what made you go the entrepreneurship route and not the career 9 to 5 route?
I'll be honest with you. So for me, I never seen myself doing anything like that because for me, it wasn't, I need to see a finished product.
Hmm.
Going into a McDonald's, nothing to take away from McDonald's or Burger King. People do what they do. But for me, I need to see a finished product. So for me, if I clean that dirty window,
Hmm.
I seen that get clean. It was filthy dirty. I just clean it now. It's crystal clean. I'm like, oh man, I like that. So even before that, I went to career centers and stuff, and I thought I was going to be in carpentry.
Hmm.
But my whole thought behind it was I was going to see something finished. I was going to start with a 2x4, and I was going to build this building, and I would see this finished product. I think that's just the way my brain works. That
Okay.
way.
Well, I mean, when you think about a finished product, I mean, you could have seen a finished product working for someone. So I guess I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between that finished product working for somebody as opposed to you owning it and doing it yourself.
Um, I think for me it came down to the dollar. There were certain dollars that I needed to be in place, and for me working somewhere, nothing against anybody that was going to offer me whatever, I needed to kind of monitor what that would be.
Gotcha.
You know?
Okay. So it's like, hey, you wanted 100% of the
Right.
profit and not 5%.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So now let's talk about the milestones and turning points in your business. So when did you get to that point after the struggle? That's what I'm gonna call it, right?
Okay.
Started off rough, but when did you finally get to that point like, man, this might actually work?
Hmm. So that situation I was telling you about, that happened very abrupt because we had probably struggled, man, for about, man, my wife was like, go get a job. I mean, it was a process for at least about almost up to 2 years. And then that particular situation took place that I told you about, and it just changed everything. At that particular time, just from memory, I probably made 60,000 in 3 months, I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I was like, hold up, I might be on to something, you know.
Okay.
And that's when I started pushing more.
Ooh, okay, so Micrin, that's good. You know,
Mhm.
and I say that's good because a lot of times as new entrepreneurs, right, we start down this business path, this entrepreneurship path, and we do it 3 months, 6 months. We're like, it's not working. But the fact that you said you struggled for 2 years and your wife was like, look, it's time to go get a job. And then you're like, hold on, honey, just, let me continue to work this thing. And then finally, 2 years later, it hits. And then things are successful for the next 18 years. So throughout the process, so once the success hit after those 2 years, what were some of the key challenges that came along the way and how did you overcome those things?
So,
Because, even sometimes with success, we still have challenges that hit here and there.
yeah. So I'll tell you some of those. For me, I never went to school for any type of management, business, anything. It was just cold hard. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
So early on, I was probably running off good help. What do I mean by that? I would work people out of work because I was so driven that I had to, take care of my family like most men do.
Exactly.
I had this mindset I was going to go in and I was going to get this done in this amount of time because that needs to make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
This dollar amount has to come to this for this to work. And if it doesn't make sense because I always compare what you might make at let's just say, any type of work situation. I need to make that money in this amount of time for it to really make sense to me. So that was my whole motivation. I was just going to do it in a smaller amount of time. I even say that to guys today, the most amount of money in the least amount of time. I live by that.
Okay. So what was challenging about that?
Again, I didn't have management skills, so I didn't understand how to manage people.
Okay.
I really had no, early on in that particular setting, you have to have people in place.
Mm-hmm.
I knew nothing about that. It was just going to be me, and I was going to manage this. I was going to get this going. Well, there's a problem that lies in that because, again, if you don't know how to finesse or work with people, then people find something else to do.
Absolutely.
And that's pretty much what they did.
Okay, so how did you scale? So I know you said you wanted to start with something that had low overhead.
Mm-hmm.
You got the ladder and the other small products. How did you scale from there? What was the next step? Was it buying a truck? Was it buying, what was that next big purchase in your business?
So the next big purchase, I always bought equipment. I just felt like if I have the tools that make the job faster for me, whoever else I might have had with me, it will work to our advantage. So I don't remember. I tell you what it was. I had after the hatchback situation, I did get a van, but the whole point was I was going to get it for our family. We were just going to have the van. Well, that van turned into a work van. And I'm
Okay.
talking about a work van with ladders, decals, the whole nine.
Right.
And then that was the big deal. Then it just kept rolling. That particular van, I think, was like a Chevy, not Astro. It might have been an Astro. I want to say Aerostar, but that's Ford. It was like a Chevy Astro or something like that.
Okay.
And then I just kept buying those particular vans.
So did you take all the seats out and just turned it into a work
We
van?
did take the back seats out. Sorry for cutting y'all, but we
No,
did
it's
take
okay.
the back seats out. That was what it started with. We would keep all the equipment back there. Then, of course, we tinted the windows. We didn't want people breaking in. We had a couple of them.
Right.
But we tinted the windows out, and that was the way we kind of did it. And this is funny, but I have to tell you this. So I always was leery about people leaving a job. So what I would do is, instead of having them meet me on the job, we always took all the guys to the job. So whether it was one person, two people, hey, just hop in with me, because that way that assured me getting that job done, because if they met me on the job, they might leave, or, you don't know who you're getting,
Right.
so I felt the safest way for me to get the jobs done, I would take them and bring them back. So they would just meet me at a lot. I never had them come to our home, but they would meet me in a lot or somewhere. I would pick them up. They hop in with us. We go do the job. I bring them back.
Okay, so at what year mark did you hire somebody? So I know you started off I'm assuming you started off by yourself, right?
Yep, started off.
So when did you hire your first employee?
It would have been probably maybe a year or two after that big account.
Okay.
I'm thinking maybe a year or two. And it was just, I think, one guy. He was working with me pretty regular.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a year or two after that, so it sounds like year 3 or year 4. And then after that, did you pick up an employee every year, or how did that process work?
At that particular time, we were still sifting through people, because I would use people pretty often. I wouldn't consider them an employee. They just worked with us or whatever, to make sure it was not stressful to anybody. And then I'd probably say it was safe to say about an employee a year, or an employee every other year is kind of what I did with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I noticed there's a lot of power washing, window washing companies out there. What separates 2020 View LLC from all of the other companies out there?
Good question. So at the time, and I'll just be straight with you,
Yeah.
we did the most death-defying stuff. So I had companies that would actually call me that were maybe too scared to do certain jobs. They knew we would do it. And it wasn't that we would do it because it was just about the money. I kind of like doing those things, because I had to figure out a way to get it done safe. I had to figure out a way to just get it done. So I was excited about it. I'm like, man, this is cool. Let me figure out what I'm going to do to get this done in the fastest way, and I normally would.
Okay. So when it comes to, so do you market that? Do you advertise that? Do you have on the side of your truck, we take the scary job?
No, so it wasn't like that. We kind of were known for that. And then it rolled into, like what you said, what do we do different? So I always wanted to make sure my guys looked it different than most. We were mostly clean shaved. Most of the guys never had beards or anything like that. And even if they did, they were really clean shaven. I always had a uniform. I wanted to make sure everybody looked uniform, where other people were just throwing a T-shirt on somebody's back. We really wanted to make sure they looked professional. That was what we thrived on. We sold our company on that alone. It was well-trained professionals. And to this day, I stick to that.
Nice. I like that. Okay. So when it comes to scaling your business, right? So we talked about what you do to separate yourself from the competitors. What do you do, before we talk about scaling, to market your business?
You mean different platforms?
No, I mean just like whatever it is that you do to market 2020 View LLC.
Um, you mean when you say market, we use different platforms of
Okay.
all sorts. I mean, word of mouth.
Okay.
If that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we've used a lot of different social media platforms. Back in the days, again, all of the trucks were always decaled with the company logos and different stuff like that on them. That was like one of the first things we did because I always felt to myself, even my father-in-law would tease me about it. He said, "Man, what you doing with that big old billboard, that rolling billboard?" But I always thought to myself, that's really what it is. And I mean, we did get a lot of response from that in different neighborhoods and stuff.
Okay. So you do all of your marketing on social media, word of mouth. You do any door to door?
We did at one time. We used to do campaigns for the break of the season. We would do, they would be like postcards, big, huge postcards,
Okay.
and it would spell out different services that there were sales on or whatever, and that was really successful for us. So we used that for years, and the start was. Uh, my nephew would tease me about this, but we would run off flyers, man, and I would do pizza parties for them, and they
Uh,
would go out on bikes and just, I mean,
nice.
scar a neighborhood. That was the start
Okay.
that we used, but we always went to the ritzy neighborhoods and stuff because it wouldn't make more much sense to us to do it in certain neighborhoods.
Gotcha. Okay. So do you have plans to scale your business?
So, possibly.
Okay. Like, do you want to?
I mean, we're comfortable, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't turn it down.
Okay. So do you have any plans to scale it? Like, have you thought about anything like to say, do you have a dollar amount in mind, like a revenue amount or a certain number of accounts you want to reach for the year?
Never really looked at it that way. Um, I normally try to sell it off of what I see working. We'll do like what you'll see maybe a Wendy's do. They'll put a certain type of hamburger out
Mm-hmm.
a certain time of year,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of the way we did with different services. We would try a service, see if it works. If we get if we get a lot of bites from it, then we'll keep it pushing.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't, we just kind of let it sit to the wayside. But to answer your question, I've never really had dollar amounts set in mind. It just if it happens or if it works, we would just kind of push it, and because like the saying goes, more money, more problems. In this, I've never ran the business that way. I didn't want the problems and stuff.
Okay.
So,
All right. And of course, the reason I ask is because when it comes to us, running our businesses, it doesn't matter if it's me or if it's you. It's just knowing that, okay, I have this dollar amount that I want to reach, or I have this account number I want to reach because we're getting older,
right,
right? And
right.
as we get older, which leads into my next question is, what does your exit plan look like?
Nice. Um, I got a few things I'm working on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so to get back to that thought, yes, there are things in place right now that needs to be done for the exit plan, um, and it's more on the lines of different services that we can offer,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense, because um, we see the era is changing right now. This new generation, not to take anything away from them, it's just they're not like what we were.
Okay.
So now I'm transitioning with that, and I'm saying, what service will work for these individuals? Because the way I've always set the business up, it kind of sounds like I spoiled the people. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I've always worked it to the individual's benefit. I don't
Mm.
want them to be unhappy working with me, and I don't want an unhappy employee
Right.
ever
Right.
working for me
Okay.
because that brings on headaches. So I kind of always work things to their advantage. So if it was roof cleaning, I'll give you an example. We used to do gutter cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gutter cleaning didn't make financial sense, but gutter covering and gutter cleaning does.
Okay.
So we sell that service that way now.
Mm-hmm.
We won't just do your gutter cleaning, but if you want your gutters covered, then we'll offer that as a service. And you don't have to have the whole house done,
Right.
but we'll do it in that sense because the guys were risking their lives going up this ladder and they working off this ladder, and I mean, you fell to your death for $100. That just doesn't make sense. So we cut that out.
Gotcha. Okay. So when it comes to like competition, right? What I guess I could say, how do you stay current with the trends? So I'm not sure if there are trend changes when it comes to window washing or power washing, but I'm assuming there's new equipment, new technology and stuff that comes out. So do you upgrade your equipment like every so many years? Do you purchase new equipment to test it out to see how it works? And the reason I say that, because you may have this other company that comes out and they have the latest and greatest everything. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you think about when it comes to keeping up with the competition?
We do. So you mentioned the box truck earlier. We probably changed that particular truck around maybe 4 to 5 different times. Mm-hmm. I just redesigned a flatbed truck that I seen where it didn't make sense the way it was. So we just did a different design on it. The pickup trucks, the vans, the different trucks that we've had in place, a lot of times, like you said, new equipment comes out. So we just kind of change with the curve of everything, and we'll just redesign the truck. I don't necessarily have to get rid of it or go buy a new one. Mm-hmm. If we need a new one, we would. But for the most part, we would just redesign the truck and then just make it work for the different times that we're in.
Okay. So how do you stay current? How do you, as a CEO, how do you keep your staff trained and current on new processes when it comes to, okay, this type of glass you clean this way, or with this type of glass you need to use this pressure? How do you keep them trained on that?
So over the years, me and my wife and my daughter, sometimes we would travel and we would go to different work conventions. Okay. And in those work conventions and stuff, we would see the latest and the greatest, and we would pick and choose because, you're in there with a lot of people that, they have a lot of motivation to be successful and stuff, and we don't knock them. Sometimes, it's a great thing. Sometimes it was like, I don't want to be in that particular situation, but I still was able to learn different things and see the different equipment that they were using to get the jobs done a lot faster and different stuff like that. So we would take, we would purchase different stuff and get what we needed to make things work out for us.
Okay. So are these like conventions, are these specific to like window washing and power washing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know they had conventions specific to that.
Oh, man, they're huge too. Actually, that term, huge, is what it was called, the huge convention. Yeah. We've been all over. I've been to Detroit. I've been to Atlanta. I've been to Seattle. I've been to Roanoke. I mean, we've been around to different conventions and different stuff. Different people have sponsored them and different stuff, and we would just go and rub shoulders with people like that because it keeps you sharp and keeps you in that lane because you want to understand, like you said, what other people are doing that works. And when you're talking with these individuals, mm-hmm. you see like, wow, okay, I can do this. You get those winter blues and you woe is me and I don't know how this is going to work out. But you go to those different conventions, man, you get a spark and you're on fire for the next season. Yeah.
Okay. So when you go to these conventions, I take it you come back and you train your team on how to use the new equipment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about when there's let's just say there's new material, right? Meaning if there's new, let's say solar panels or something like that, knowing, okay, with this particular material, if we clean these, we have to make sure it's at this PSI, right? Is that right?
Well, solar panels and stuff like that, we use what's called a reverse osmosis system. Okay. It's It's basically a brush that doesn't allow molecules or anything to stick to it. It's expensive, but that alone with the reverse osmosis water cleans those better than any. It's safe to clean those solar panels and different stuff like that. So we use that for those, and there's different things that we do use the power washing equipment for, but not for something like that.
So how'd you learn that? How'd you find out that this reverse osmosis is the correct process for a solar panel?
Again, we've talked and rubbed shoulders with people over the years. I've done small research. You know, you can do a Google search on something as simple as that. But a lot of stuff was just trial and error. I tried different stuff on different homes. We would do free demos for people, you know, coming out of the winter months, and we would try different people's homes. But again, a lot of it came from the conventions that we went to, and we understood the technology and different people talking, yeah, this is safe, but this is not safe. And we kind of went from there with it.
Okay. Yeah. Where do you see 2020 View LLC in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, good question. Well, we're a slow growth process. Mm-hmm. And I'm cool with that for the simple fact, again, I just don't want the stress. Most people are in it probably for a different reason than me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not pushing money off the table, but that's just really not my motivation.
Okay.
It's just to make sure we have a service that we can offer that's current, and getting done the safest and the fastest way. Because again, it's just like I said, when we have the dollar amount that the company needs and the guys are happy, I'm really happy. You know.
Okay.
Not much more than that.
Do you have kids?
Yep, I got 2 kids. I got a boy and a girl.
Okay, how old are your kids?
My son is 29, I believe, about to be 30.
Okay.
And then my daughter is 14, and she's about to be 15.
Okay. So having such a successful business, and the first time I asked this question was the last episode. Well, no, I'm sorry, the episode before that. And I started to ask this question because as you start to become successful, how do you prevent your kids from feeling entitled? Like, oh, Dad, you're out here making all this money and they want the latest and the greatest, they borrow. How do you keep them from feeling entitled and privileged because you are such a successful entrepreneur?
That's a good question. It really is. But our standards are a little bit different from most.
Okay.
So my kids are really not that way, and I'm not trying to sound better than the next couple or the next group, but we just live by different standards. So it really wasn't a situation like that, but I do understand how it could be that way for different families, and I have seen it in place, but it just doesn't affect our family in that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind,
I'm listening.
what are those standards? And I ask because there's somebody out there who's trying to figure out, how do I balance this? Because, sometimes, for example, myself, and we talked about this off camera, having, growing up kind of rough. Mm-hmm. And then we don't want our children to grow up the same way. So it's like, okay, we want to give you access to certain things so you don't have to feel like you got to go out in the streets and do this or that to get whatever. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we want to keep you humble and also realize that you got to work for something if you want it. So what are the standards that you exercise or implement in your household to kind of keep them away from that entitlement mindset?
So with my daughter, she's still at home with us now. So, we keep her in a situation where she understands what it's about. She's seen me work hard. She's seen her mother work hard. And it's one of those situations where she understands that, to make a dollar, you do have to put in the work. I would never personally give my daughter or my son anything. That's just me. That's mm-hmm. just my standards because of what we spoke of, like you said off camera. There is no entitlement. We were from the old school. The old school was like you're going to do X, Y, Z, and you'll get paid to do X, Y, Z. If you don't, you know, back to the old saying, if you don't work, you don't eat. And that was kind of what we were raised on. So it's not even like I said, we don't have to say much to our kids because they just know. They just understand that.
So you started from the beginning.
Pretty much. Yeah,
Okay.
that's 100. I mean, we never had an issue with our kids where they came to us and asked us for anything because they just know, you know.
Gotcha.
So
Okay, that makes sense. So I do want to take it back just a little bit. At that 2 year mark, when your wife was like, Micrin, I think you need to go back to work, right?
mhm.
What was that that conversation like with her to get her to believe in your vision? And I say that because there are a lot of fathers out there, a lot of men out there, a lot of husbands out there who have that entrepreneurial spirit and they're looking to get that support from their significant other.
Yeah.
What did that look like for you? Like, what is it that you had to give your wife in order for her to see your vision and stay on board with your vision?
I think what it was I told you I worked with that company, and I kind of had somewhat convinced her of there was money to be made in that particular lane. I didn't really know at the time how I was going to get to it, but I just kept that in front of her, knowing there is money out here with no overhead involved. Why wouldn't we do something like this?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? Because if we didn't have to put out a dime, which we didn't have a dime to put out,
Okay.
why not do something like this for the simple fact we knew it could bring, dollars in.
Okay.
So that's what I think really set in with her to make her understand, like, okay, well, he said he knew, and we didn't know the math really, but I knew when I did the math, there's no way this guy could send me out here for X amount of dollars and he not make X amount of dollars. So it's money involved, you know.
Okay. So the numbers made sense. And so you just pretty much said, hey, just stick with me.
Yep.
It's going to work. Just give me some time.
Give me a little bit of time.
Okay.
Yep.
So the young Micrin out there who may watch this video, who may listen to the audio, and he's wondering, man, what do I need to do? What advice would you give him?
Well, I feel personally, if you have some sort of a job that you can work while you pursue your ideal, that's the best way to go at it. If I had it to do over, I went for broke. I didn't have a lot to offer, and we may get into that. My wife knew my situation at the time, so there wasn't a whole lot I could go do outside of what I was pursuing. So to the young Micrin, it would be, hey, go ahead and if you can start a job, work a job, and then if you want to pursue something, then go ahead and do what you do. Pursue what you want to do, but work a job, have some dollars coming in, and then go ahead and pursue what it is that you want to pursue.
Okay. Now, you said something, and it's completely up to you if you want to get into it or not, but you said, because of my situation at the time, my wife understood. What do you mean by your situation?
So when I started this out, I had a criminal record.
Okay.
And, tons of people have criminal records.
Absolutely.
Mine was a little bit different than most. I was a felon. So my situation did not work to my advantage. So my wife understood that. She knew I wasn't going to be able to get this great paying job like most people could. She took the ride with me, and that's what it was. So,
So why were you so confident to go start a business with your record? What is it that sparked that hit that said, you know what? Just because I can't go out and get this high paying job doesn't mean I can't build my own table.
Nice. I knew the hustle that I had in me from an early age. I mean, I've done it all. I mean, cut grass. I done sewed, pop. I mean, I did it all. I scrapped metal. I mean, there wasn't nothing that I wasn't going to do to bring a dollar to the table. So with that, I knew I was on to something because that was the same thing I was going to inject into this career that I was trying to pursue. And that's exactly what I did. I just pushed and pushed and pushed until somebody left that door open.
Well, I'll say this. To be in that position and to say, you know what, I can't go out and get this high paying job, but I'm going to go out and build something for my family. I mean, in this case, your family. And you went out and built a 20-year company with 9 employees, sometimes more, 2,500 clients, city to city, multiple vehicles, a team of people that trust you, putting your team before you. Obviously, of course, you made sure your family was good, but not operating your family and focused on the dollar, but operating your business to give others an opportunity to grow and to mature in terms of professional development. I think that's huge. And hats off to you, man. Kudos to you, because you're definitely an inspiration to the young Micrin out there, to the guy out there who is either incarcerated right now that may be watching or about to get out, to say, man, Micrin did that? And he did it because of perseverance. He did it because he knew at a young age that he had the hustle and the grit to do whatever it is, and he took all of that energy and put it into one thing and made it work. So with that being said, building a successful company is not easy, and it takes time, it takes grit, it takes hours. How do you balance your time between that daddy-daughter time, that father-son time, and time with your wife? How do you balance all of that with such a successful company?
Nice. We, over the years, I'll be honest, my wife will laugh about this, but she had got to a point where she hated the name 2020 View. It was pretty serious, man, because I mean, I spent time and time, and I seen that attitude, and I was like, why is this like this? And I couldn't understand. I was like, I'm doing everything. I mean, we got money, we got this, and everything's working. But like you mentioned, there's a balance to this. And for me, my daughter, my son, at first I would mix them into it, and I thought that was great. Okay, I got my son, he's working with me, but that really doesn't work, because he still wants me to be his dad, not this boss that tells him he has to do this, he did this wrong. No, it's a situation where you have to set that over there. A lot of people get that mixed up. They think, oh no, I'm providing for my family, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Yeah, that's great, but you still have to be a dad to your daughter, to your son, a husband to your wife. So I learned that later, and I feel good knowing that I caught it in time, so to speak.
Okay. So what did you catch later? Like, what did you catch, and how did you implement that to make it work?
So I seen what it was doing for the marriage. My wife didn't want to hear the name, and I said, okay, so I'm doing the most,
Okay.
so to speak.
Okay.
So at that particular time, I said, okay, so what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to change this around. So that's exactly what I did. I said, okay, when I get home, work is off limits. Work is off limits. When I get home, and some stuff would still seep out. I mean, it just was going to happen. But for the most part, work was off limits.
Okay.
So to date, when I get home with my daughter, even from this interview, we'll just sit and talk at the table. We'll clown around, talk about something. And it doesn't have to be anything, but I'm giving her that ideal time. Mm-hmm. Same difference for my wife. When I get home, she doesn't have to hear about it. If she asks a question, and sometimes it's hard with my wife because I want to share the lows and the highs, and, it's just that way. But I've learned over the years what it's done So I'm quiet unless she brings it up. If she brings it up, oh, I'm opening
Right,
up.
right.
I'm going to share it all then.
Okay.
But if she doesn't, I'll leave it at that, and that's
Gotcha.
kind of the way I move.
So what about having an adult child, so your son?
Mm-hmm.
How do you figure out or balance that time with him, being that he's older now and I'm assuming out of the house and living his own life?
He's pretty easy. My son, he's like me. He's kind of got that entrepreneurial bug. So
Okay.
he's got his own thing going. He understands the operations. He understands the way business works. So I'm kind of excited for him because he's at this stage where he's figuring things out and he's finagling and doing different things. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, And I'm just watching to see what's going to become of it all.
Okay. All right. So give us some closing words. Anything.
Closing words.
Yeah.
Keep the family, in the front of all this because businesses come and go, that daily. Your families are your day ones. They're going to be with you through the thick and thin. If you don't put them in front of all this, you'll wind up by yourself, unhappy with your lip sticking out. And you're like, why? And it's a really simple answer to that. You put the business in front of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people, like entrepreneurs, they get the lines crossed and it turns into a mess. So just make sure your family's the most important thing. All of this is just going to work. It's just going to work. If you work and you hustle and you do what you do, it's going to work. You get the right people in place and the business works. But again, the family is the family and the business is the business.
Okay. Yeah. Well, wise words from Micrin Norman with 2020 View LLC. If you have any window cleaning needs, make sure to reach out. Oh, one other thing we want to add. How can they find you?
You can go to our website, which is 2020viewllc.com. You can catch us there, Facebook, some of the platforms and different stuff. We have advertisement up on there. Also, Angie's List is one of our main platforms, Google Ad and all these different platforms and stuff. They use us also.
Okay. So 2,500 clients. The man has clout. He knows what he's doing. He has experience, 20 years in the business. Make sure you check him out. Window cleaning needs, power washing, commercial, residential. He's your guy. He has the team to do the job. We want to thank you guys for joining the Let's Evolve for Tomorrow podcast, where we help aspiring, new, and existing entrepreneurs excel to the next level by inviting other inspiring, aspiring, new, and existing entrepreneurs to the podcast to give knowledge, information, and education on how to get to the next level. And we'll see you next time.